Monty?
On this episode of Lions Gray Mains, we're dissecting Kelvin Sheppard's defensive masterclass, backup shutting down and holding Tampa to just 9 points, the officiating reversal that everyone's debating, Gibbs' 200-yard breakout, and what the bye week means for the Minnesota Clash. Data-driven analysis, zero hot takes, and forward down the field.
Down to 10, Jahmyr to the 5, Jahmyr to the end zone, touchdown Detroit Lions!
And off Barry, skirts to the left side, breaks the tackle, and he will take it in, touchdown!
Touchdown Detroit Lions! That's what I'm talking about! It is caught! Touchdown Detroit Lions! Amon-Ra St. Brown! Oh baby, what a play that time! Aiden Hutchinson read that and blew it up! Big time stand by that defense!
Okay, maybe a little bit of the hot takes, according to Dan. Okay, let's call them like medium warm takes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Gray Mains. My name is Chris Stone. I'm at castahead.net, and that gentleman on the right side of your screen, we call him DBC, Dr. Brent Kreider, fresh off a victory. This is a Tuesday, a victory Tuesday. How are we feeling today, Brent?
Oh, excited, energized. I mean, the Ford Field crowd last night was unbelievable.
Yeah, talk about it. How was the vibe?
It was electric. I don't think until the Lions win the Super Bowl this year, I don't think that that the energy yeah. The energy could be as high as it was in the Bucks and Rams games two years ago. Wow. 128.2 decibels, as best I can remember it. We can probably look that up. Last night we approached 120, and it was loud. And we saw the impact that the crowd noise had on the game. It's the only thing that I'll critique is that the Lions fans have to understand that we got to start yelling when the play is getting called in the huddle, because the crowd would really build to a crescendo after they get to the line of scrimmage, and you do impact the audibles that Baker Mayfield would have been calling during the play, and clearly he was bothered. But get that roar going while they're trying to call the play in the huddle.
Yeah.
Because it really does impact their ability to communicate and their ability to call plays. And Baker was having difficulty, even though what I'm describing is levels of greatness, because we're talking about polishing a diamond here, where the Lions could have, and thank you, Mike, but the Lions could have and were impacting the Bucks on the field, but the crowd had a tremendous impact on Baker Mayfield's ability to call plays and hear the plays being called in.
Yeah.
Despite my critique, he was still holding his hands over his ears. He couldn't hear the play calls coming into him. So Lions fans, for what it's worth, get loud a little bit earlier, and you will have a much bigger impact, and they'll start to have to go to hand signals maybe to call plays into Baker from the sideline. But it was great, and it was so wonderful having Mike Terry there with me. And Mike, thanks for joining. And then we had a real privilege to meet up with Ron Crackman last night. He's a wonderful guy. I saw a tweet of him today playing golf. Had to retweet it because he's just an absolutely wonderful person. Great Detroit Lions fan for many years.
Man.
And the NFL fan of the year. I made the mistake of saying just the Lions fan of the year, but Meg was the Detroit Lions and the NFL fan of the year. So my apologies for not getting that straight. And I did reach out to her, and I would love to get her on the show sometime to hear her takes, because she's one of the Lions legends.
Oh yeah.
And one of the her dad is famous, the Uperman. So it was just a wonderful experience.
Yeah, and for those of you who are just now tuning in to Lions Gray Mains, where have you been all of our lives? But thank you for joining us. And what Brent is referring to is Here at the Gray Mains, we go live every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, and then we take this content and we sprinkle it all over the interwebs, including an audio podcast for you to, in case you missed the live, you can catch it on your commute or however you enjoy your audio podcasts. But we also do a pregame show, and we did that last night before the Monday night game. And by the way, I'm loving the 7 p.m. Monday night football game. That 10 p.m. game was a clunker. So, obviously we had the best game of Monday night, so we're gonna take that trophy. But we did have a pregame with DK, who's on the screen right now. Welcome Dan Keener as well to the show. And DBC was on location there at Ford Field with my man, Mike Terry. Spider Mike was also there, the one who has the actual gray mane, which I'll always say to him, who's backstage giving us the decibel readings from playoff games as well. And it was really cool, Brent, for you guys to be able to stitch that together and make that happen. Megan obviously was not able to hear what was going on. You were kind of communicating those things back and forth. It'd be great to have her on the show. Crack, man. Obviously we're going to have guests as this thing builds out, but we appreciate you. Wanda Rich, again, here. She's so happy. Doesn't everything just taste better, Wanda? Everything goes down easy. It's just things happen today and you're like, yeah, whatever, water off a duck's back. Is that how we say that, Dan? I got to be careful with Dan.
Better than what I said last night.
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes I'm like, I don't know, maybe I should Google the Urban Dictionary on water off a duck's back. It might not even, we'd be canceled by the time the show's ending.
I don't think that word means what you think it means.
Exactly. Dan, how are you feeling about the game, man? I know it was not the shootout we had thought it was going to be, and certainly there was a number of things we didn't think would be, which was including our defense, our secondary, and Kelvin Sheppard, which is really what I think needs to be the biggest focus of tonight's show. Ever thought, if you said to me, one team is going to score 9 points tonight, I would have said, uh-oh. I don't think we're going to come out on the right side of this thing. Dan, what are your thoughts on how Kelvin just was a masterpiece?
He put together just an amazing game plan. He played to the team's strengths, and honestly, the one thing he did do, which I was kind of reading online during the game as I was following along, he didn't call a defense scared, right? He didn't go into zone to protect these guys. He let them play. He let them play man to man. And that's something the game before against the Chiefs we didn't really do so much of. We were trying to protect some of our cornerbacks as we had guys injured. And, we were getting burned by Kelsey and, other players, and because we were just not letting these guys go out and mano a mano try and guard guys, So last night I saw much more man coverage going on out there. We still got burned, but look, who was our leading receiver? It was Otten. It was the tight end, and it was basically 5 to 7 yard passes all night long. That's really all they had. Mayfield was uncomfortable. We talked about it in pregame. If you want to beat these guys, you have to get there. That defensive line has to help the secondary. So not only did that secondary play outstanding, but that defensive line was in Mayfield's face quick last night. Every time he dropped back. And he pulled a few things out of his hat. He made one long completion downfield. We talked about that's the one thing we can't do is let him scramble and find a guy. I think he found Johnson downfield about 25 yards one time after he had scrambled out to his left. And he had the other touchdown he had to Johnson was just a great run by Johnson. I mean, that kid at Oregon, he was electric. I know he had some injuries but he's an electric player. He's not the biggest dude, but he is fast. So holding that team to 9 is amazing. And I want to give a shout out, not to who you think. The guy last night in that secondary who I think made it work, and it's not who you probably think. It's Thomas Harper, the safety.
Yeah, that's
That
not a
guy is
name that's been coming up. It's more, people are talking about
exactly.
Whiteside and Mollett, who got the pick. So talk about it.
So Harper, I believe, was quarterbacking the secondary. He was the most experienced player out there, from the safety. It was him and Hallett, and Harper was basically quarterbacking the secondary. And he made one outstanding stop. It was a play that was destined to go for 30 yards, and he just came flying up and took out the legs of, I don't remember if it was White or whoever it was, the running back, stopped it for like a minimal gain. But if you notice, those guys very rarely were they out of position. They played hard. And, he was a sure tackler. He came up several times to ensure that the play didn't go any further. So he's kind of my unsung hero last night. Whiteside played great. And the other thing I mentioned pregame, remember we talking about the butterfly effect? Well, the butterflies, these guys go out there, get a couple plays under their belts, and they need to get stronger and better as the game goes on, as they basically realize, hey, dude, I'm an NFL player. I belong here.
Yeah.
And, with Evans going down with the injury to his shoulder, his collarbone, very unfortunate.
Second quarter, right? It was
second quarter.
Early.
Ibuka really, he played, but he just didn't seem to be his usual explosive self.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we talked about Johnson already being explosive, but the DBs, they played fantastic. They were all over. They limited the coverage. There was a great game plan. The D-line played well. The linebackers, I don't want to say they got exposed because they had a lot on their plate. They had to guard Mayfield. They had to guard Otten. They had to protect in the run game with White. White's, I think you brought it up pregame. White's not a bad back.
Oh, he's great. Yeah, underrated.
He's a tough runner.
Yeah.
And heck, he ran over Hallett twice. His first two touches, Hallett
still,
got him
still went down.
Yeah, it's funny how Buck and Aikman wanted to just talk about how that guy was just getting steamrolled the whole time. I was like, can you guys shut up about this? He did tackle him. I mean,
and know what? He's the guy that got better as the game went on.
Yeah.
Same with Rock Ya-Sin, right?
Yeah.
Both those guys, they had, Ya-Sin got called for a PI that, whatever. But they got stronger as the game went on. And I'm pretty sure that Ya-Sin was, I wouldn't say was shadowing the number one guy, but as soon as Evans went down, I noticed he was on Ibuka a lot more. So Amik and him, they did a fantastic job of covering those guys. And basically the D-line made them, pushed him off his mark, pushed Mayfield off his mark, and made him uncomfortable all night long, along with what Brent mentioned, the crowd. They had plenty of false starts, and they talked about it, and he was complaining on the bench. He just was having trouble communicating.
Yeah. And so, Brent, I want to roll this to you because, Dan touched on the secondary. We're going to be talking about the secondary because, I mean, these are names that a lot of Lions fans never heard of until they started watching the game. The three of us and Mike backstage as well, we know these guys. We know Nick Whiteside played at Grand Valley State, and Grand Valley, Saginaw Valley, he's a Michigan, it played at the Chicago Blackhawks and the UFL, and we know all these guys. But Brent, I know, nothing happens last night without great linebacker play. And just an incredible game from Jack Campbell. Showed up on the screen all of a sudden, just blowing up plays. And a lot of stuff doesn't show up on the stat sheet from Anzalone. Derek Barnes. I mean, can we give Derek Barnes some flowers, ladies and gentlemen? This man, showed up, had a sack, but I mean, our linebackers right now, okay, everybody grab their blue Kool-Aid. Can we say the E word? Are our linebackers elite, Brent?
Well, what is the most difficult thing to do in the NFL in terms of coordination and orchestration? It is your secondary play. Getting 4, 5, 6, 7 gentlemen to play in a scheme is probably one of the most complex things that the NFL is requiring players to do. Special teams, you run down a lane, you make a tackle, you fill your gap, the secondary is incredibly complex. And the Lions, yes, Dan hit on it. They played a significant portion of man-to-man last night. But on the interviews with the players last night, they talked about playing cover two quite a bit. And it allowed the players, number one, to settle into the schemes that the Lions were playing and to orchestrate that secondary in a way that was almost like an orchestra. It was a beautiful thing to have them um, align and really play their positions and just do your job. And that's a big Campbell saying is do your job.
Yeah.
Now, then you throw in linebacker play against a mobile quarterback, and much like Lamar when we played Baltimore, Baker Mayfield had probably his poorest game
Yeah. Well,
in my memory.
I think we
because
ended his MVP campaign. Maybe I like I don't want to say that too early, but like you saw like last 2 years when somebody mentions Jared Goff is on an MVP, like then all of a sudden, like the next few games he just kind of doesn't have his best games, and it just seems like everybody started talking about Baker Mayfield being an MVP, and it seems like last night we just kind of took him off that track.
Well, I mean, in Baker Mayfield's defense, he didn't throw 4 interceptions or have 4 turnovers.
Oh yeah,
I mean, what ended Jared Goff's run last year was Houston, and we still won that game, by the way. Um, but the most impressive thing was the way the linebackers played last night to keep Baker Mayfield contained. The few times that it looked like he might break out for a big play, he would run right smack into Anzalone or Barnes or Jack Campbell. And gentlemen, I called this at the beginning of the season, and Chris, you rightfully challenged me because it is hard to become an all NFL level player. The best of the best is truly, something that's hard to attain.
that's true.
The Lions had a handful plus of players, and we talked a little bit about that on episode 1 when we first kicked this off. But I am firmly in the corner that Jack Campbell is going to be an all NFL player this year.
He's
He's trending.
Kuechly 2.0.
He is trending in the direction that I thought he would trend in terms of hitting his stride. And that guy is a physical specimen. He can run. Has learned to diagnose plays. He's just Johnny on the spot, and that takes nothing away from Barnes, because you guys, many folks were saying, we signed Barnes for what? The guy's coming off a knee injury, and we signed Barnes to this big contract. Dan, Chris, Mike, we all know how important he is to the Lions and playing that strong side, and he can flip over to the weak side. Jack Campbell is equally versatile. And so the versatility that our linebacking core gives us and the ability of those 3 players to impact the game, I think we could argue that we have one of the top, if not the top linebacking core in the NFL. But if you look across all 3 of those players and each of their individual abilities and the way that the Lions played as a team last night, the Bucs scored 1 touchdown. 1 touchdown. They had been playing and pretty much moving the ball at will. I told you all I was at the Bucs Jets game on the Lions bye week, and there were so many penalties called. If you remember me talking about this, Baker Mayfield just kept getting first downs,
Right.
just kept getting first downs. His ability to, when the play breaks down, his ability to scramble and pick up yardage, he's a really, really good quarterback. And what the Lions did in the secondary, which Dan did a fantastic job of kind of detailing yesterday. I went back and listened to the full broadcast because I couldn't hear a lot of it with the noise last night. But with the analysis that was done, it doesn't surprise me at all with Coach Sheppard and Dan Campbell and the culture. And today on First Take, they were talking about it. The Detroit Lions, make no mistake about it. Do you miss Aaron Glenn? Sure, you miss Aaron Glenn for continuity. Sure, you miss.
Dan is shaking his head for all of our audio listeners. I feel. Listen, I miss some things about Aaron Glenn, but seeing what Kelvin Sheppard has done, I don't. miss
Yep.
Aaron Glenn.
That's exactly
and
where
it's
I was
not
going.
because it's not because of what's happening for the New York Jets right now.
Yeah.
You know, I actually want Aaron Glenn to succeed. I do have respect for that man, and he's done a lot for as long as the Jets don't affect my Detroit Lions, go and do your thing, Aaron Glenn. That's all well and good. But I'm okay with how Kelvin Sheppard is right now. There was many times in the last few years I was like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this with Aaron Glenn? So, listen, you're going to get some pushback on the show. Brent, Dan, everybody, we're going to do that. Before we get too far, you meant just going back to the linebackers. And we're going to touch on this, I think, later on in the show, because we're heading into a bye week. And on the other side of the bye week, we have the Minnesota Vikings, which obviously is a massively important game for us in the division. But we're going to get the cavalry back, ladies and gentlemen. And we're talking about linebackers. And one of the linebackers that potentially could be back is Malcolm Rodriguez, or as we like to call Rodrigo. And of course, let's talk about the depth, like all these great players, Alex Anzalone, Jack Campbell, Derek Barnes that we talked about. Don't forget about Zach Cunningham. Don't forget about Grant Stewart. Don't forget about Trevor Nowaski. These aren't just guys that we're sticking in, and they happen to be, in LB4. These are actual great chess pieces as linebackers, and not just starting linebackers on the defense and filler pieces, but special teams players as well. Malcolm Rodriguez fills a lot. I mean, we're going to have him play fullback, tight end, special teams. And so it's that's the other thing we got to talk about from our linebacker depth. And guys, we got people that are chiming in. Wanda Rich is all over the chat. Wanda, thank you again for joining us tonight. I think we may have covered this, but Wanda wants to know, what is the experience of all the new starting secondaries do for the Lions going forward, given that we've had 4 new starters in the game that performed so well? And I think this is a great question, right? So Terrion is another one of these players that's going to come back after the bye. Like, I don't know if we go, okay, look how great Rock Ya-Sin did and how Amik Robertson did. Like, I think we all know Amik Robertson is a guy that we can move to the outside, but his best place is nickel, right? And so Terrion, I think when he comes back, he's gonna stay on the outside. Obviously, DJ Reed, that's an outside cornerback. So, but I think it's a great question. When we do get DJ Reed back, which is likely not for Minnesota, that's going to be further on down the line. But when Terrion does come back, he's already practicing. That feels like he's going to be back for Minnesota. These are nice problems to have, right? We've got good depth pieces in Whiteside and all of these other DBs. How do you guys feel about this, Dan?
Yeah. So here's the main thing, in our internal chat, I'm typing depth, and big bold letters, but
Right.
honestly, it's more than that. I think we sat here, and Brent, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm getting old, my memory's a little fuzzy, right? But I think it was either our first pod or maybe our second. We talked about how this team has been constructed differently than years past. The mistakes that were learned last year in the playoffs and how Brad Holmes tried to rectify them this year. And the thing that he has done is create the amount, we're looking at these going, it's like the movie Major League. It's like, who the heck are these guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know any of
Mm-hmm.
these guys, but he has brought in guys, the Maulettes, the Stricklands, bringing Whiteside back,
Yeah.
signing Jamie Robinson, who didn't play, but, obviously he's only been here like 3 days, so that makes sense. But he is going out and continuing to get guys to bolster not only the depth of this team, but he's creating the competition at the bottom of the roster.
Yeah.
These guys are fighting for their paychecks to stay on either the active roster or to stay on the practice squad with the Detroit Lions.
Great
because we are a winning organization now. They want to be here. And how that helps us is we are getting guys in there. Obviously, we would love to not be playing these guys, but the fact that we have played them, They came in on short notice. Some of them have been here for a while. Some of them have been on and off, and understand the scheme and stuff. But they've come in and they played well. Now, if you play them for long stretches, are they going to get exposed? Yeah, more than likely. Mollett, he's got some definite shortcomings. He's a long, lanky guy, but he is slower than Mike trying to chase a deer, right? I mean, so, no offense, Mike. But he ran like a 4.58 coming out of college when he was 22, and he's like 30 now or something. So, but the guys in short stints, kind of like Rodrigo, we know what Rodriguez's shortcomings are, right? He's made himself a better linebacker, but if you have him for an extended period, he will get exposed, especially in the passing game. He doesn't do well covering tight ends. But for the time being, I think we're in good shape. These guys could come in and spot start or fill in during a game, and I have confidence that they're going to play well or play with the veterans that are out there, especially as we get these guys back. If you got to put someone in for a short stint, I'm feeling much more comfortable than I was, say, 4 weeks ago.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And this is a great point, Dan. And Brent, I'd love for you to weigh in on this as well. When you have a game like you had last night, you've got guys like Trey Flowers, Jahmyr Robinson, and some of these guys that weren't active, right? But they're like, hey, look at these other guys that have been here a few weeks longer than me. Now I know, like, I have an opportunity here. If I follow what these guys are doing, this is what leadership is about. This is what coaching is about. It's like you aren't just brought in and you're just kind of, like you said, getting your paycheck. Like, these are guys that are learning from guys in front of them. This is excellent management. This is excellent leadership. And I feel like, Brent, I'd love to roll this over to you, because I know this is your wheelhouse, right? This leadership is your wheelhouse. But like, talk about what that means to some of these players that, these Trey Flowers, this is a veteran. Jahmyr Robinson, Fuller, these guys are veterans in the NFL, and they didn't get a chance to play. They got to earn that spot to play, like these guys did last night.
Yeah. So the NFL is a business, a big business. And in the corporate world, you talk about succession planning. and we all laugh about it in the real world, because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The NFL is no different. As you're building that depth, Dan in all caps, depth, right? The truth of the matter is that Brad Holmes, to his credit again, and I can't wait for the bye week discussion that we're going to have on Brad Holmes and talking about the success that Brad Holmes has had. But he learns his lessons well. And what he did was he built up this depth, and he's built it up with the right players, with the right temperament, with the right capabilities to fit into the Detroit Lions culture. Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, the Detroit Lions have a culture problem. If you don't fit in their culture, you're going to be out. And that's a good thing, because they believe in playing and making sure that the folks fit in and that their skills align with what the Detroit Lions need. Now, back to the question of depth. Dan talked a lot about, what does this do for us? But I would say we have never seen a deeper Detroit Lions defense in terms of depth in my life. And I love the 91 Detroit Lions. Yeah, and across all three levels, Spielman, Spindler, Pritchett, Blades, and White, and all the players. This Detroit Lions team has so much depth. And what happened last year, I don't believe is going to be an issue, because you look at the secondary. Yesterday was a perfect experiment of building a secondary that could sustain itself. And when you throw all four players out and you're playing four new starters, it's incredible what they did. The linebacking core, you guys talked about, I talked about Barnes and Anzalone and Campbell, and you guys rightfully brought up bringing back, our Oklahoma State cowboy,
Rodrigo.
Rodrigo, absolutely. And he's got all kinds of limitations, just like Dan was talking about the 40 times, but he fits in culturally. The guy
Doesn't
will run
matter.
through
Size and 40 time doesn't matter, man. If you can put those in a wheelbarrow and roll them out onto the field, you're going to be a part of a Dan Campbell team. Yeah.
Wouldn't we love to have another defensive end though? But the defensive line is stacked.
Yeah. Well, Mike talked
back
about it. I think especially we saw this. Listen, we've been talking about the defense all night, and we're halfway through this show, and we haven't talked about offense yet. But the return of the Mac, ladies and gentlemen, was absolutely effective. I got to hand it to my man Dan, because I in the pregame I was talking about 20, 25 snaps maybe for McNeil, and Dan was like, nah, I could see almost double that. Well, here we are. What was it? 44 snaps for Lee McNeil. Now, I'm sure they were like, 2025, we hope it could be 40, right? That's their thinking. Like, let's see. And I did see him kind of get a little bit gassed in the fourth quarter. Yeah. There was, I think they were kind of like, we're going to see, a gas to Lee McNeil and see how that rolls. And, they're managing all these guys' tanks, right? They're managing Reader's tanks. But here's the difference that I noticed is, like, here we are without Levi Onwuzurike, right? And let's not forget about Levi Onwuzurike and Aleem McNeil. These guys are, you put them in on second and longs and third downs, and they're gonna collapse that pocket. They're gonna push that pocket. They're more pass rushing guys, not run pluggers. But we've got all these others interior guys. We got Reader and Lopez and these other guys that are more kind of like, stopgap, filler guys. Now you've got Aleem McNeil, who obviously can do both, really well. But like you see when Aleem McNeil is in, like there's a lot. I mean, how many times are you guys going holding? How many times are you screaming holding? Because Aleem McNeil is just coming right up through the center,
right up the middle.
Just changes everything. Yes.
Look at what happened though, Dan. Your guy, Ohio State, Tyleik Williams. Tyleik got a chance to develop, and now suddenly you bring in a guy like McNeil, who is a really, really good defensive tackle. You got DJ Reader. He can take a few plays off now. They were playing a lot more snaps, and Lopez had his name called a few times last night, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. In a good way. And so suddenly that, people were complaining, sign more defensive linemen. And I, as God is my witness, I would love for the Lions to sign or trade for, Max, all these guys that are going to be on the market, the Cowboys.
Yeah. Crosby's hurt now. Like, listen,
Crosby's hurt. Hendrickson is banged up.
I think
the trade deadline's in a week, 2 weeks from today,
right?
right?
Smith retires from the Eagles.
Graham retires and then comes back because they're desperate. So he's going to pull a hamstring within like a game.
Guys, when are we going to, as a fan base, stop chasing names and start trusting Brad Holmes?
Yeah, well, winning teams we've talked about this multiple times. Teams that are the most successful over the long run, those historically great franchises, the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Steelers, they were really successful drafting. They brought in players in a limited way, because the NFL was different then. The players were contractually obligated to stay with teams,
sure,
in the old days, and so a lot of the players. But and Mike, thank you. The Patriots, of course, I didn't intentionally leave them off, but they develop players, they draft well, and the Detroit Lions are now in position to have long-term success because of the ability that Brad Holmes has to identify talented players. On the Mike Tirico, or excuse me, on one of the shows that I posted today, they were talking about when the Lions drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, the fan base went
Oh yeah.
insane.
Oh yeah.
They were upset with it.
We could have
And
got
I
him in the
trusted,
second round. Remember that? Like we
no,
could have got
he
that
was
guy
going
in
to
the
go the next
second
pick.
round.
Yeah, he was going pretty
He
quick.
was going to Dallas. And then the same with Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell, what a
Took him
steal.
a little bit longer than I think we had hoped, right? I think, but man, is it paying off right now for us.
He wasn't even bad though the last couple of
No,
years. He
no.
was
I
just
he
mean,
wasn't.
growing.
there was
Yeah, he
it
was
was the it was you know, in pass, and I think that was really just it. And I think now you can really see him, like, there, you can't see him thinking. He's just playing, and in like let that happen. And I feel like that's really paying dividends. Listen, Brad Holmes he's had masterful drafts. There's been some clunkers, like Broderick Martin comes to mind. I think there's some others that we could probably, talk about. But man, I'll take that batting average for Brad Holmes all day long. Especially all of us gray mains remember the drafts of yield times, with Matt Millen. And all of those, like what wide receiver are we taking? Oh God, yeah, let's bring in Big Mike Williams from USC. Yeah, that was a good pick. I mean, it was just year after year after year of drafts that were just abhorrent. And now you've got a guy that's not only knocking it out of the park for your team, but every team. Like, look, every other team is going, how is Brad Holmes doing this? How is he finding these guys? And how did he get Brian Branch in the second round? How did he get, Sam Laporta in the second round? And Jack Campbell was in the first round, which a lot of people, kind of forget. And they think, oh, well, maybe this wasn't a great pick. But Jack Campbell was a fantastic pick. Now we're seeing that. It's, not all these guys pay off in the first year right away. So in any event, I think
in the future, in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're jumping around here, guys, and we've talked a lot about defense. We haven't talked about the offense. We can't let this show go on without talking about the night that Jahmyr Gibbs had. And I want to put a pin in the David Montgomery, and Jahmyr Gibbs conversation, because I think we were all expecting David Montgomery to be more a part of it, and I think they tried to do that. He just wasn't getting the plays that Jahmyr Gibbs was having. And Dan, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Is it felt like Jahmyr had the big home runs, in terms of, the long runs and the highlights that we saw, the touchdowns, but it felt like he was more involved in kind of long runs, almost like long handoffs that were passes. There was a couple of where now we're starting to see Jahmyr Gibbs more in the passing game. So we're seeing, the guy's getting 130 yards rushing, but all of a sudden he's getting 80 yards passing, because they're finding ways of, hey, if you guys are going to pull in all of these defenders, we're gonna split this guy out and see he's going to make 2-3 people miss and head to the house. What are your thoughts on Jahmyr Gibbs?
Well, they're the defense's last few weeks, they've been basically challenging Goff. They know we're going to throw the ball. If he has time, he's just going to carve them up. So they're challenging him, and they're blitzing or disguising coverage and bring in 6 guys, basically more guys than we have available to block, right?
Mm-hmm.
And last night, if you take away the big long run for Gibbs, the 78-yarder, he only averaged like 3.6 yards a carry. Montgomery only averaged 1.6 yards a carry. And a lot of that's due to Vita Vea, right? That dude's just a
insane
dump truck trying to get moved out of there. He, Ratledge had some trouble with him a little bit. He got beat a few times, and hey, the guy's an all-pro for a reason, right?
Yeah,
but to your point, those guys between Gibbs and Montgomery, they had 5 catches. They had 100 yards even. Gibbs had 27.3 yard average. Monty actually had 9 on his 2 catches. So, what's going on is we're seeing Morton adapt to the pressure and giving Goff the ability to hit these running backs to slow that pressure down, force those safeties, force those linebackers to have to cover these guys coming out of the backfield, not just some little crappy dump off. He's throwing it to him in the flat. He's giving them flare passes. We
Yeah.
haven't seen the Texas route yet that Ben Johnson. He used that several times last year masterfully.
Love that.
I'm waiting for that to get brought out. It's going to come, and it's going to be a touchdown to Gibbs or whoever uses it, right? Whether it's him or Monty. But yeah, they are definitely using the running backs to our advantage. Jamo has become he was open several times last night, and they just Goff missed him, right? And then the ridiculous OPI, he just disengaged from the guy. It's not like he shoved him away or anything. Yes, his arms maybe came out. That happens every game.
Dan, are we going to talk about officials tonight?
We can not right now. We can go to that later. But
Plenty to talk
that
about.
negated a big catch, right?
Yeah.
But he's been more, hey, Jamo's fine with being the decoy and getting some shots and some crossing routes.
Is
I
he
don't know
fine?
about that.
Is he fine? He's posting some
He's gonna
stuff
have
on
to be.
social media.
He's bored. He posted.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah,
then
he's bored.
that's on him. Then you need to get.
Yeah.
you need to
That
make
was
sure
one thing
that
I
you
was
get yourself
worried
in a
about.
position. Because you dropped the pass, it hit you in the hands. I don't care if it was low or not. It was at your knees and you dropped it. So
Yeah,
that's
he doesn't
you got
adjust
to deal with that.
He does not adjust to the ball in the air. I mean, that's his biggest problem. And when the ball does hit him in the numbers, he drops it. So
He's a crossing. He's either a deep threat over the shoulder, post, fly route, seam route, or he's best on those square ends about 15 yards downfield, catching it, on a crosser. And you're noticing we're seeing more of those patterns for him.
Yeah.
We're trying to give him the ball. Goff threw it his way at least 4 or 5 times last night.
Yeah.
One got overturned by an official. He dropped one. And the other 3 basically were just bad passes. Nothing. He was open on almost every time the ball came his way.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I would love to have like, hey, go long and we can hit Jamo all day long, right?
Alabama offense.
Right,
Go
exactly. But listen, this is Tampa Bay, right? And Bulls, listen, I think this is the thing that I think about most is, folks, we won 24-9 against a very good Tampa Bay team with an outstanding quarterback and an outstanding coach and defense. And so, yeah, it was going to be a tough game, and we still won. And we overcame a Goff fumble, early in the game, right? Goff also threw a pick in the game. Right? We went for it on 4th down inside our own 20 early in the game. Did not convert. Jake Bates missed a field goal. These are big mistakes in a game you can't make against Philadelphia in Philly, right? And so this is what Campbell's going to talk about with his team about what we need to clean up, right? And so I want to shout out Alex Middleton. Thank you for joining us tonight. Alex is chiming in on the Gibbs conversation. Gibbs has shown himself as the best back in the league. No longer just a runner, can block, can do power runs. This is this is great. Alex, thanks for shouting this out. Gibbs had some great power runs, some angry power runs. And yes, we always talk about Demo, and Gibbs and Sonic and Knuckles, but Gibbs has got, he's got Knuckles too, right? He can do the power runs, he can catch and also go on a long run. So Alex, thanks for chiming in on that. Yeah, and it looks like Mike says 2 official targets for JMO last night, but like Peyton Manning doesn't like targets, so we're going to talk about targets. I guess it's a stat, Who knows what's an official target or not.
Penalty takes away a target, though, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
OPI.
Yeah. Well, we said we're going to talk about the offense, right?
Let's do it.
We've started talking about the offense here. Jared Goff was under a lot of pressure last night.
He was.
Love the way Tampa Bay plays defense. I fully expected us to have 38 points yesterday. And the reason that we didn't is you already hit on 3 or 4 of the reasons why we didn't score additional points. But give a lot of credit to that Tampa Bay defense. They had 9 routinely. Mike and I were talking about this all game long last night. They routinely had 8 or 9 guys in the box, stacking it up, bringing pressure from all different angles. And our offensive line, I don't think we've seen the PFS scores yet on how the offensive line did, but uh, the line is going to have better days.
Yeah.
The Goff got hit a few times, and I hate to see Goff take those big strikes, just blind sacks. Um, but let me again continue to be an advocate because we have, and I love the comment. We have a Ferrari in the backfield. We have arguably, if not the best, one of the top 3 running backs in the National Football League with Jahmyr Gibbs. I could not stand to hear the sounds of him running into those defensive tackles and those defensive linemen and linebackers early in the game. This guy he is tough as nails. He is physical. I give him all the credit in the world. But the question that I have to ask again is, do you want him to be? Do you want him to be running in between the tackles early in the game and wearing him down and grinding him into inevitably what ends most running backs' careers early is taking too much physical punishment.
Yeah.
And so I will agree with you guys. Man, the guy can be as physical as anybody. Do we want him to be? Do we not want when we in early in the game when we're running those physical runs? Um, I think it's in my opinion, I would love to start Montgomery because when Gibbs gets hurt, and the more you run him, the more you run him in between the tackles, the more you require him to be a physical in between the tackle runner, the more risk there is to getting him injured. We can still win. Montgomery's a really good running back, but I am a big believer that it is not wise to continue to pound him in between the tackles. And when does he break his long runs? Late in the quarters, late in the half, second half.
It was earlier in the game. I think here's where I might I'm not I don't want to push back on you. I'd say conceivably, Brent.
I do.
Like I think yes, we don't want to see Jahmyr Gibbs, getting pounded because if he's getting pounded, he's getting hurt, and when Jahmyr Gibbs is out, that significantly hurts this offense for sure. But I think a lot of this is a chess match. When you've got Jahmyr Gibbs out and you have your offense, it's your defense is treating the offense a lot different than if it's David Montgomery in the backfield. And so I think what's happening is Johnny Moe and Dan Campbell and how they're scheming that offense is as much about what they're showing and what they're actually calling, right? And so you're seeing, let's just line up, Jahmyr Gibbs every time and do all these great things. And then when we bring in David Montgomery, how is the defense treating your offense? He's not doing the same things Jahmyr Gibbs is. And I'd like to see them both in the backfield, and at times, bringing Jahmyr Gibbs out into the slot and pulling him in motion and being more creative about all of that stuff. I think a lot of it has to do with, it's not just as like, okay, this is Jahmyr Gibbs play, this is David Montgomery, like let's keep this guy in the entire series, which I never really agree with. I feel like, let's call the play. Whoever the running back is for the play is going to do the play. It's just, I don't know. There's so many things that complicate the situation. Dan, I know you want to chime in on this.
I mean, it is what it is, right? I just took a look. Gibbs is 11th in the league in rushing attempts right now, and you know what? Look where his big runs happen at. They're not because he's running to the edge and turning the corner. He is popping these things out from the middle. His big touchdown run last night was off of Ratledge and Sewell.
Off tackle.
Off
Yep.
tackle, right? It's
Yep.
between the guard and the tackle. They just had a great block. Those holes are there. Now, do you want to see him run into Vita Vea? No, absolutely not. The dude's 350. You do not want to see him run in there.
Sure.
But, let's be honest. We're trying to win games here. Monty is a capable backup, and he has switched to that backup role. He's also, I think, 30, right? Gibbs is still a youngster. He's not small. I mean, he's 5'9", but he's a little over 200 pounds. He is a stout dude. He's fast as all can be, right? If you notice, and I'm not going to invoke Barry because he's not Barry. Nobody's Barry. How many times you seen Gibbs take, just an absolute wicked shot? He usually is the one delivering hits, or he's like sliding off of the contact when he goes down, right? I don't see him take a lot of just get stood up and hammered. A few times up the middle, but that's Morton, or in this case could be Goff. You got to check out those plays. If they got an 8-man front, why are you running into it? That's just stupid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Find something else to run.
I think the touchdown run was on an 8-man front, just because they ran it all night. So again, this is we're critiquing here beauty, because
you're concerned rightfully. If you lose your engine to your offense because you over rev it, that's a problem. But I think that's why you see Monty play 3-4 series. And if you notice, they rarely, unless there's a big run, they usually give whoever's in there the entire series at the back. I think it's about 2-1 right now is my guess, Gibbs to Monty.
I think we're going to see this ebb and flow, guys. Remember the Ravens game? I mean, that was Monty was just outstanding in that game. And that wasn't that long ago, right? So I just feel like they're going to do this. They're going to run these plays. They're going to scheme these things out. Sometimes it's going to be Jahmyr, like we saw last night. Other times, it's just it seems like more often than not lately it's been Gibbs over Monty in terms of usage and in terms of effectiveness. And so Alex also says, I know he hates the phrase power back, but it does say what Monty is. He's not able to do absolutely everything. I would say that's true. Whereas Gibbs is learning to do it all. Gibbs is more explosive, which is scarier to D. Okay, so all that is very true, but we can't, I think back to your point, Brent, we can't have Gibbs out there and getting 35 carries a game, and expect us to stay healthy, all year long. I mean, we know that the formula needs to be a bit of a committee. And there are other teams that are just like, they would love to have these problems. Guys, we're making this sound like this is a huge problem, right? This is not. Yeah. These are nice problems to have. Alex, we appreciate you chiming in and bringing this in, because this is what we do. And for those of us who are longer in the tooth, like the three guys here on the screen, we're not used to having these problems. We're not used to having one good running back, let alone two good running backs. We're used to having Ron Rivers, name, Amir Abdullah before he actually became a viable, still a viable running back in the league. Here's the carry breakdown from Mike Terry. Thank you for this. Gibbs, 104 carries, Monty 78 carries. So
and how many did Monty have in the Baltimore game?
It's in the chat window there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm getting old. Thus the gray manes.
I mean, take a look at who we've played though. You've got Green Bay, who is number 2 in rush defense in the NFL. Cleveland is number 4.
Right.
Tampa Bay was number 1.
10th or 11th.
Yeah.
They were going into the game.
They were 2 going in. So
yeah, not so much anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Cleveland was number 1 going in too. So yeah. But again, it's I think you touched on it, Chris. It's a player for all occasions, right? Mm-hmm. If you need someone, you've got Montgomery. If you need a home run hitter, you got Gibbs. If you need guys that can catch the ball, they both can catch the ball. And I'm going to be honest with you, last night, I don't know if you guys noticed, an underreported thing is Reynolds pulled a hamstring.
Yeah.
So
I saw that. Yeah.
Usually that third back gets at least a handful, maybe 3 or 4 carries a game. Not even in garbage time, like just scattered throughout. And we didn't have that third back. I don't think they trust Sailors in that game last night. He didn't see the field. I don't think until it was maybe at the end he might have been in, but
Mm-hmm.
so we did have a little bit of efficiency there, but I share Brent's concerns. I don't want to see Gibbs get hurt, but also, these if you try and protect a player, I think it's worse because I think it's going to lead to them playing scared and
Yeah.
getting hurt. If you get hurt, you get
Yeah.
hurt. I mean, it's the NFL, I mean, we're playing on a turf field. They've been banging at the drum that that's bad for players and knees and injuries and stuff. When it seems to me like the biggest issue with injuries right now is hamstrings. It's soft tissue injuries is
Soft
what's
tissue.
going on right now. And I think
Yep.
that's a direct result of the NFLPA, over the years, whittling down the amount of work these guys get in the off season and during the regular season. I mean, they don't practice a lot anymore,
Eh,
It's not a
Yeah,
bad thing. Just saying, I think that's a side effect of guys less work out there. But there are also more games now too. There's 17 games, but one less preseason game. So
That's an interesting
soft tissue.
topic, maybe for another show. I think,
Off week.
I think on an off week. And speaking of that, ladies and gentlemen, Alex, we're seeing your comments here. We're gonna pull those in. We do have a bye week coming up, fellas. And but we're going to stay consistent with this show. Just because the Lions have a bye week doesn't mean that the Gray Mains have a bye week. We got
my
plenty
bye
of
week
stuff.
is the week after that.
We still have plenty of stuff to talk about, even though the Lions may not be playing next week, and there's a lot of stuff coming in. So make sure you guys are subscribing, and we'll make sure that we do that. So. Alex says, hey, he's from England and has only been into the NFL for the last 2 or 3 years. Year the Receiver show came out and loved Amon-Ra and became a fan. Yeah, that was an amazing. I've gone back and watched that a couple of times, and one of my favorite things, guys, is hearing Amon-Ra talk about how he went in the 4th round, and it almost like at that point he didn't even want to go to the Lions, right? But he could name all the wide receivers that went above him, and that was a part of that show. And so he's only been here for the highs. Oh, okay, Alex. You got plenty of time to get jaded like the rest of us. So Alex, we thank you that. And so he says, if you think back to the Ravens game and that long run from Monty, it looks similar to Gibbs. If it was Gibbs, he takes it to the house, vice versa. Winfield catches Monty if it was Monty last night. That's a good point. I mean, I think
100%.
when we saw that, I mean, obviously, now we've got Jahmyr Gibbs with 2 of the 3 fastest runs. I think Jonathan,
all 3.
Jonathan Taylor has.
No, he owns all 3 this year.
Jonathan Taylor has the fastest thing, but it was a pass. So he ran with a pass. So Taylor from the Colts has the fastest run. But I mean, what are we talking about? We're talking about fractions of a fraction of a fraction. I mean, this just in, Jahmyr Gibbs is really fast, everybody.
He's quick.
He's
the
fast.
the thing about Monty is he would have possibly run him over.
Right. Yeah. That's true.
I mean,
That's true.
Monty.
Winfield is kind of
Winfield's
soft.
there. Oh, a target.
He's kind of soft. No.
And then having Reynolds out in the Tampa Bay game, I was fully expecting to see somebody get knocked into next year. Reynolds is a fantastic blocker, and so to have such problems. The other thing that I'll mention is I'm noticing a significant decline in Saquon.
Oh God, yes.
Mm-hmm.
After
Twofold.
again, how many times have players set records for rushing attempts and yardage, and then the next year or two, they fall off the face of the earth? So really, that's what's in the back of my mind is, and I'm not suggesting you treat him with kid gloves, Dan, and I know you weren't referring to
I
my
agree with
comment
you on that part.
Yeah, you gotta have a game plan, and as part of the reason I really liked Monty starting, and I loved it last year. We were the 3rd or 4th all-time highest scoring team in the history of the NFL.
Sure.
With Monty starting and running physically in between tackles and wearing on the defensive line and the linebackers, and I love that design, right? And so that's all I'm critiquing. You guys have heard me say this multiple times, so I'll shut up about it. But the bottom line is that I'm trying to make sure that it's out there in the ethosphere that Jahmyr Gibbs, we need to make sure he is not worn down when it comes late in the season, when games, as Campbell said on his press conference today, the important games start now.
Yes.
Everybody's 5-2. Everybody's 5-2. He said
NFC's
the
tight.
real,
Yeah.
but the real teams are going to become, it's going to become clear who the real teams are through November, is what he said.
Yeah. I think,
And so
I think, and this
5-2.
is, you bring up a good point here, because I was talking earlier to a friend of mine who's also a huge Lions fan. And that is, I think this is something that Campbell has learned from last year. So last year we obviously, 15 wins in the regular season, historic regular season for the Detroit Lions. But like the carnage that was the, everybody on IR and our defense, and we just, we just sputtered out. And yes, Dan, we also had an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator that had interviews, and we knew they were gone as well. But I think one thing that Campbell learned from last year is like, listen, this is a slog, man. I know it's 17 games and every game's important, but we got to do things like, you know what? Taylor Decker's not going to play this week. Giovanni Manu is going to be playing against Cincinnati. And, Kirby Joseph, who in a playoff game, you think Kirby Joseph's going last night? You bet he's going last night, right? And he didn't play last night. And this is all very tactical, is like, you know what? I have confidence in my defense. I have confidence in these guys. And I'm kind of playing this because I know at some point later in the season, this is going to pay dividends, where I need guys like Taylor Decker. I need guys like Kirby Joseph. I need guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, like you're talking about. So how can we kind of mitigate these carries, win these games, and not get these guys killed, and break collarbones like Mike Evans, and all of these things that are happening during the I realize, but look at right now, the Bucs right now with Emeka Ibuka. Who knows what's going on with his hamstring? It was absolutely affecting their game last night, but they put him in. Yeah. Now, how is that going to affect their next few games with him and Mike Evans out? Like, that's the kind of stuff I think that Dan Campbell's looking at for this Lions team. We've got this back end of the season to really worry about. We've got to beat the Packers on Thanksgiving. We've got 2 games going against the Minnesota Vikings, who are not a team that we can forget about or take lightly. And of course, the Chicago Bears are on a 4-game winning streak. So I think all of that said, I think, to your point, Brent, let's keep these guys healthy. There's only so much we can control, but I think that's what. Do you guys agree? On this, on the Campbell thing, you think he's playing it like that, or is he just kind of like let's just throw these guys out there?
I think there's a twofold thing going here, right? Brent touched on it last year. Obviously we know we had issues with focus in the playoffs. I'll just leave it at that. But I think he also saw the injuries over the course of the season, and if you notice, our pace of play has been slower this year than it has been a little bit, right? And we have a new OC, so last year doesn't mean squat. Ben Johnson's with Chicago, and Chicago's doing their thing, and they're playing better on offense, and it's clear he's brought the offense with it over there, and they're doing well. But Morton's got a different game to call. He's using it differently. He's using his weapons and his tools differently than Johnson did last year. He had those guys for 3.5 years, so he knows what they had, what they can and can't do, and he's very comfortable with it. Morton's still learning, so he's leaning on the guys he knows are big hitters, right? I threw in the window last year. Lions scored on their opening drive. 8 times out of 18 games, including the playoff games. And Montgomery was the leading first touchdown scorer in 6 of those games, right? But they're all like 1 yard, 1 yard, 2 yard, 3 yard. They're just short little runs, right? And I think Morton realizes that he has an absolute dangerous weapon and a 2-year veteran running back in Jahmyr Gibbs. He's going to turn him loose. He's not going to abuse him. Mike posted in there, that's the problem going on right now with our buddy over in Philly. Is he came from Penn State, I believe, right? So He was absolutely run into the ground at Penn State. He's been run into the ground with the Giants. The Eagles ran him into the ground last year because let's face it, Jalen Hurts is an adequate but not great quarterback. I'm not talking about a runner or a tush push sneaker guy.
Dan. We're gonna
He's just an
get some
okay
comments on that
quarterback.
one.
I mean, the guy's got probably the third best set of wide receivers in the league, and
Wow.
he's got the heave it deep Alabama Oklahoma mentality.
All right, Eagles fans, don't throw batteries at me.
Yeah, the Chiefs fans, don't let them know that I criticize the Eagles. They might come on and give us some flack too.
Well, hey guys, I know we're coming up on the end of our time, but I want to bring up one thing for a quick comment. We didn't talk about Aiden Hutchinson. He's having a fantastic year. They double teamed him all night last night. Baker
Triple
Mayfield
teamed him, man.
They were chipping him.
Chipping and triple teaming.
No, when I say double team, it was a combination of literally two guys blocking, the tight ends or running backs chipping him, receivers chipping him. So it was, they applied a lot of different techniques against him that I noted. But Aiden Hutchinson is having a fantastic year. Baker Mayfield had 18 pressures last night, of which Aiden, I think, had either 5 or 6. There were 12 or 13 pressures on Baker Mayfield from players other than Aiden Hutchinson. And so for those folks that were screaming, Brad Holmes is terrible because he didn't pick up another defensive end, the numbers don't lie. Okay. That's one. Number two is that the Lions are coming into a stretch, and we didn't really get a chance to get into what's coming up next, and we'll do that on our bye week show next week. But I want to look at the schedule and this stretch that's coming up. We've referred to it over the past few weeks briefly. We have got 4 games in a row here coming up that are critical to the season. And I am so looking forward to Minnesota. And if I wasn't traveling for a conference, I would try to talk Crystal into us going to DC and to Philadelphia to take in the Commanders and the Eagles games. But the Minnesota games, those games, then obviously on Thanksgiving, the Packer game, those 4 games are going to be huge in the big scheme of things.
Yeah, I forgot to mention this to you guys, like breaking news. But one of my great friends and business partner is a Commanders fan, and so he's going to be at the game, and told me that he would be able to jump on the show for the pregame against the Commanders, and that is Sunday, November 9th, as well. So yeah, I mean that's great take, Brent, and we've got tons. The 2 fan is back in the house. Thanks for joining us. You always seem to join us at the end, the 2 fan, and bring it's like tactical. Let me just finish this out with these great comments. So 2 fan says, well, I really think the team has great momentum going into the November stretch. I will take looking forward to November. Go Lions. And that's go spelled Geaux. So there's some French action, or like maybe New Orleans. Yes.
Maybe Walker, Louisiana. I'll give a clue.
Yeah.
Walker,
Alex says Hutch looks the same as he did pre-injury. If anything, looks better. Yeah, I think a lot of times, people would look at last night and go like, why isn't Hutch getting sacks? And all we had to do is look at the stats and just see how, that was an insane, basically Bowles was like, I'm not going to let this guy get another sack against us. So we're devoting all of that. And I think that was a major factor as to why our defense was successful, because they were just so focused on 97 that it allowed us to do that. Wanda, thank you again. She says, thank you, Mr. Brent. Glad I wasn't the only one who thought Aiden Hutchinson was being double teamed upon. And Some great comments, and want to thank you again for talking about the coverage. Tonight, and that we were great, and I thought last night was great as well. That we were able to do that pregame. Brent, you and Mike joining us live from Ford Field from the tunnel as you dropped your gum onto Dan Skipper's right shoulder pad there in the tunnel. No, I saw something fall there. I was, whatever. That was really cool, and it'd be cool to see if we could do that going forward for certain games. We'll have somebody there on the ground there for the Washington game as well. Just a fun way to kind of make this thing happen. Us as Lions fans, we get to share in this community, talk about the team, and certainly everything is great when your team wins. And hey, Dan, we didn't even talk about the officials that much tonight, man. But the officials were a factor last night, and we'll get into it. We can get into it. We're overtime at this point.
We can do it. We'll do it Tuesday.
We'll save the internet from all of our crying, right? Because that's we
yes
we joked about it, but listen, we made so many social posts about the Chiefs and the officials and all of that kind of stuff, and boy, that got people whipped up. Boy, you want to get the internet going.
Claiming bias.
Yes,
weird.
Yes. But apparently that's what people like to do on the internet. But listen, there were some big calls last night, and there were some calls. I think the officiating was not great on either side, if I'm being honest. Yeah. We got some calls. And they got some calls, and it just was not great either way, if I'm being honest. I think it kind of a wash. I didn't feel like the officiating caused the game to go in any way, but there was some big calls. Let's just touch on this really quickly. There was the call that was Dan, the Otten was short of the line to gain. It looked like he caught it and was short of the line to gain. And Campbell asked for a review of whether or not he caught the ball, I believe. And what people don't realize is
process of the catch.
He
asked him to review if he caught the ball through the process of the catch.
And when you do that, you everything that is reviewable is under review in that situation. Yes. And I think that's what I think a lot of people were like, wait a minute, he reviewed this and then they found this. Well, that's also reviewable when you do that.
That just shows how so many folks on the internet that have opinions are not necessarily fully up to speed on the actual rules. The NFL rules are ridiculously complex. They have sections that reference other sections, which reference a subsection, and they all tie back together. I mean, being an official is very hard just to understand the rules completely. I think the biggest issue last night, and probably what got the Chiefs fans all up in arms, is the fact that, they made a change after the play, after they had reviewed it. Well, the NFL, the head VP of, I don't know what he was, Butterfield or whatever, he basically said that, look, they had problems with the communication devices, so they brought him back to the thing to look and show him and communicate through the headset because his on-the-field headset up to the booth wasn't working. And that's when they made the review to say, hey, yes, he completed the process of the catch. Because let's be honest, the ground can't cause a fumble. So how on earth you think that's a fumble if he caught the ball and then hit the ground and the ball popped loose? You can't. That's not even logical, right? So then reviewing it by Campbell having them or forcing them to review it, they could see that, hey, his knee was down. Clearly in the picture there, you can see the ball is short by at least an inch or two from the white 40 to the, I think it's a 40. I think it's the 39-yard line, maybe. Mm-hmm. 39. So, it's clearly short. And that's just picked up because everything that's reviewable, and there's a laundry list of about 8 to 12 things that can be reviewed, and each one of those has got another 10 to 15 versions of it. They made the right call ultimately. I just think people were a little upset about the fact that it was after they already said Lions lost the challenge, lost the timeout,
and then we
got to go back and take another look. Yep. It's just fiasco. The NFL, they really need to get their stuff together because they're just looking bad in front of the paying customers.
Yeah, it didn't look good. They got it right. And by the way, look at this angle. For those that are just listening, we're showing the angle of Otten reaching and being short of the line to gain with Anzalone tackling him from behind. Like, how do we get this angle right down the first down marker? Like, how does that happen at the 39-yard line? Like, with the odds of that happening are very, very rare.
Yeah, there's
a little train like thing that goes.
I know, but still.
And I told Mike last night, I was like, I want that job. I want to be able to drive that little thing from end to end of the field with the camera on it.
The fact that we got that is insane. And also, do you guys feel like it was intentional that Campbell reviewed the one thing in order to get the other thing?
Well, he certainly knew enough to know that everything is subject to review when you make a challenge.
Okay.
You can't challenge the spot of the ball if the officials rule it a fumble. So he had to challenge what he could challenge, which allows the rest of it to come into play. That's where you're going with that, right, Brent?
Yep. Yeah.
So
I thought it was quite creative. The first call, the second one, Mike and I were going, what the heck is he doing?
Yeah, right. It was like, okay, this is where Meathead Dan Campbell comes in. Like, why are you reviewing that? We can talk about that a little bit. Is that?
I would never call him that, but hey, you guys call him whatever you want. I think the guy is.
He's a lovable meathead.
I was always worried about the guys in the Air Force that said, I'm just a simple guy from Texas, or I'm a simple guy from Alabama. Okay, this is somebody that is going to be a formidable foe,
right?
And Dan Campbell,
serial killer.
Dan Campbell has always just played the role really well. I'm just a guy.
And then of course, guys, we had this other call, which was the pick.
But can I just, as you're bringing that up?
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about that spot is the NFL has that new laser system, and remember they used it in the preseason, and it took them like 8 minutes.
That's to mark a first down, right? And
no, but
virtual assist, Brent, is the actual phrase you're looking at.
Whatever they want to call it, I don't care. But the point is that is the perfect time to apply that type of technology, where you don't need the camera sitting spot on the 39-yard line. What you need is just a very simple process. And guys, technology today exists to do this in nanoseconds.
You kind of do need that, don't you? Isn't that whole thing predicated on the fact that it's all camera driven? There is no chip in the ball. The fields aren't laced with sensors, right?
There's technology.
Use cameras, but the cameras have to be able to be there, not necessarily directly down the line, because they can use angles and math, to work out where it's at, but they still need something that's close to be able to get it. That's just great camera work. Say what it is. ESPN ABC had a great spot down the line.
Knee is down.
That's what they took it back to the booth for, was to show that photo right there.
Short
that
of the
image.
line to gain.
Yeah, but guys, how many times the Detroit Tigers against the Dodgers, game 2 this year, the guy's hand is on the plate, the catcher's mitt
baseball.
is not on the player. I'm just making a point. The catcher's mitt is not on the player. You got umps, you got referees, you got human factors in this. And baseball. Too many traditionalists involved in that.
Well, let me give you two hillbillies from down south a little bit better example.
It's called TTL. TTL.
Has a
tagging, tracking,
system,
and locating.
This
NASCAR
Ohio guy talking
that
about NASCAR. Here we go.
That they use for their pits in their whether they're in or out of their pit stalls. It is mapped to that area, and those cameras pick everything up. They are very advanced. The NFL, with the amount of cameras they have in their stadiums, there is absolutely no reason that they couldn't do it. Remember, was it Fox that had the 30 camera panoramic Super Bowl that one year, where they were just moving it around, and it's they'd look at it from all angles.
Isn't this a camera in the pylon? Isn't that a camera right here?
Yeah, there's there's camera in the pylon.
Well, then what are we doing? Looking at this.
They set that down now.
Bingo.
All the pylons in the end zones have 3 cameras, one facing in all 3 directions of the field of play, right?
Yep.
Except for the back ones, they only have 2. But the ones in the front of the end zone, they've got 3 cameras too. I mean, there's cameras everywhere.
Guys,
Someone's just cheap.
lasers can be put in those pylons, easy as day. Tagging, tracking, locating technology exists. That's microscopic.
Next
You
gen
can put
stats, man. They
That's
track
it.
these. How do they track these guys? How do you make that little white thing go like this across the screen and watch him weave and bob through the, I'd love to see because we know that somebody missed a tackle, but that Tez Johnson run last night, even though he plays for Tampa, that was a great run.
Yeah.
He weaved and bobbed and jumped and, he made his way to the end zone. It looked fantastic. You see that on next gen stats and you'll see him, it looks like a roller coaster out there zipping around.
Guys, we're overtime. I knew I shouldn't have brought out the officials at the very end of the show. That's on me. Guys, that's on me. That's on me. But I appreciate you, Alex, and folks for staying. Michael,
we gotta get Alex. We gotta get Alex to meet Simon.
Yes,
we got another great Brit that's been part of our cruise.
Connection. Let's make that connection for sure. Folks, we'll be back again next week, and we'll be previewing the Minnesota Vikings game post-bye, but we're also going to talk about some other stuff as well. We've got all kinds of content that we've kind of banked that we can talk about, and we look forward to this every week. We appreciate everyone. Wanda, Alex, and there's just a ton of people. Sorry, the 2 fan. I'm scrolling through. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you have not yet subscribed to us on YouTube, please do so. We're at the Gray Mains, and you can follow us on the Gray Mains on X and at the Gray Mains on Facebook, and, of course, the audio podcast as well. Gentlemen, any last words before we go?
Go Lions. That's what we always say.
That's it. Go Lions.
Busts it outside left. Jahmyr down to the 10. Jahmyr to the 5. Jahmyr to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Hand off Barry. Surge to the left side. Breaks the tackle. And he wins.